Get free tech advice for your business from O2 Gurus. Search O2 Business for more. You're in the market for a Windows phone and you live in the UK. Your choices are Nokia, or Nokia. If you're in the US, you can opt for an HTC One MA on Verizon, but they're crazy expensive, just like the Nokia Lumia 930. Don't get us wrong, flagship specs sit in both. You've got metal bodies, well, a metal frame, and you also have wireless charging on the 930, as well as a wireless charger in the box. Full HD display, Snapdragon 800, 2GB of RAM. This is a flagship in price and in spec. Putting that to one side though, that's too expensive. You could opt for last season's flagship, and that's the Nokia Lumia 1020. This is a beautiful device, our favorite Nokia styling to date. It's got a really bold circular camera surround, optically image stabilized 41 megapixel snapper around the back, and a Xenon flash. But you've got a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 dual core processor in here, slightly outdated. If we move that to one side, you could always opt for a Nokia Lumia 735. LTE at just over £200 a pop, not bad value, and similarly styled to the Lumia 1020, but it hasn't quite got the punch in terms of design, and it doesn't feel as premium as the metal devices like the Lumia 930 and M8 for Windows. So where's the tipping point? Where's the happy medium between all of those options? Here it is, it's a Nokia Lumia 830, and you're watching our full review. We've been using the 830 as a secondary device for a month now, and from day one the design was its real highlight. That metal frame makes it feel much more expensive than a £300 phone should. Well, technically speaking, compared to the competition. What you can also expect is a similar kind of styling to the flagship 930. But you do have a thinner frame on there. That thinner frame does come paired with a slightly taller body, but that is a sacrifice we are more than happy to make. What you can also expect is slightly less protruding buttons, but that's the only real area the Lumia 830 feels less premium than the 930. You can also expect the same button configuration. On the right hand side is where you've got the volume rocker, power button, and the two-stage camera button. Like we said, they don't protrude enough for our liking, so we'd much rather they were a little bit more bulgy, but having said that, they still feel mega premium. You've got no buttons to the base or to the left hand side, but up at the top is a 3.5mm headphone jack and a micro USB connector. On the flip side, camera surround sporting a 10 megapixel camera and an LED flash. You also have speaker grille at the base, but this is a removable back cover available in a range of colors, including that brilliant orange that we see on the 930. Remove the back cover to reveal a 2200 milliamp battery, nano SIM card slot, and expandable memory by micro SD card, and you've got 16 gig of onboard storage on here. That expandability will make it for many people a preferable device over the Nokia Lumia 930, and we can definitely understand that, especially when paired with that slimmer frame and of course the same sized 5-inch display. Speaking of that display, 5 inches it may be, but it isn't identical to the 930. It's an IPS LCD display, so not the same AMOLED technology. This means you're going to get slightly less deep dark blacks. We can bring the 930 into frame and you'll be able to see what we mean. You can see how there's a real distinction between the actual black screen and the bottom bar, whereas that's less so on the Lumia 930. So the blacks aren't as deep, the colors aren't quite as punchy, and the clarity isn't quite so high. 720p means you're falling just shy of 300 pixels per inch. So not as sharp, not as punchy, not as vibrant. Arguably more accurate whites though. IPS displays have better viewing angles generally than AMOLEDs, with retaining that color integrity, and indeed the same can be said of the Lumia. At max brightness, both look very comparable. You can see we have both flicked up to max right there. We can bring them closer into frame so you can gauge the kind of sharpness that you can expect from both. Open up text areas, and these should be identical sizes, and you'll really be able to make out key differences in terms of the viewing experience, and you should hopefully be able to gauge exactly what we can gauge, and that they're very comparable and both look very good. We're really impressed with not just the display but the overall in-hand sensation. Picking it up, thumbing through the user interface, this feels like a flagship, and the mere fact it isn't, the mere fact it costs a lot less will definitely appeal to many out there looking for an LTE device with a premium chassis. Inside the phone, it's Windows Phone 8.1, and that's a good thing because you're going to get a very simple user interface to get your head around. It's also a bad thing because you're not going to get the app support that you might want from your smartphone. Now, Windows Phone is supplemented by Nokia and indeed now Microsoft in a very, very big way. If we open up our Nokia folder, you can see you've got free offline satellite navigation, you've also got free offline mapping, and you've got mixed radio for free offline music. What you also have is Lumia Selfie, Lumia Creative Studio, and Lumia Storyteller. Storyteller is amazing. It's a rich way of plotting where you've taken the pictures that you've taken around the world. You can see we've gone from Ealing to the Lower East Side in New York, and you can see all the images that we took in the Lower East Side extending right through to things like light trails, etc. are really richly demonstrated. We can tap on one of those images and we can pinch out and it will actually plot it in the exact location that we took it, which is beautiful. So these rich elements are really nice to get out of the box, and indeed Microsoft also gives you a lot of these experiences too. So you've got money, you've got travel as well. If we jump into travel, it's one of our highlights. We're daydreamers when we're out and about and we kind of want to just go somewhere, even if we don't actually get there ourselves. If you do find that destination that you're looking for, it'll also give you a little bit of additional information. So you can see there's a lot to sell this operating system out of the box, but what we don't like about the operating system is if you're not content with the out of the box solution, the app support is just not there. It's not terrible. You can download applications like Instagram, Vine, for example, Facebook, but the chances are you'll have tapered functionality compared to their Android or iOS counterparts. Also, for gamers out there, you're going to likely need to install applications that just aren't quite as cool as the games available for iOS or Android. There are some exceptions. Some applications are indeed available for both, and they do come out at the same time, but that's not the general rule of thumb. You do have decent video support. Again, while you've got maybe tapered functionality by comparison to iPlayer, Netflix, and Crunchyroll on Android and iOS, these are on board. So if you do like streaming video, that 5-inch display is going to be great for it. You should have got to grips with the UI since we've shown you around it right now, but we're going to talk you through it quickly. You've got a start menu, and to the right hand side of that, you have all of your applications. This may just look like a horrible list, but you can jump through to a letter if you tap through on a letter right there. You also have a pull down bar from the top, and that pull down bar has some quick toggle settings, and you've got access to your general settings as well. And your settings is a horrible long list. Now we say horrible just because if you want to find something, you're going to really want to remember where it is on here. Otherwise you're going to have to be reading this every single time, which much rather there was some iconography for very quick scrolling. It might lose some of the cleanliness on here, but it's a compromise we would be more than happy to make. You also have application settings as well. If we jump into this list of system settings, you can see there are some really awesome elements. You can manage the double tap to wake, for example, manage motion data. So you collect motion data when you're walking, etc. And that ties into the Microsoft Health app. What's really cool is that the display settings can be tweaked extensively. You can customize your brightness profile. What is low brightness? What is middle brightness? What is high brightness? You can set it to your eye. And on top of that, you can also just your color profile. You can see we've actually set our color profile to up the color temperature, tint it a little bit more purple than green, and up the saturation ever so slightly, because this looks great to us. You have a few key images, and of course you've got some presets there too if you don't want to customize it yourself. Jumping out of that, and everything else is pretty standard. You can change the look and feel of your home screen relatively easily by tapping through on themes. And as you can see, what this means is you've got an image in the background and you've got highlight colors selectable. So this gray could be swapped out for green, yellow, whatever color you want really. So that is the user interface in a nutshell. Good, not great. It's worth also mentioning the keyboard on Nokia Lumias are awesome because they have swiped interaction, and of course the spacing is really great across this 5-inch display, but you can't swap it out. So you can't import your SwiftKey predictive text settings, for example, like you might on iOS and Android. So again, another area Windows Phone falls slightly behind. Multimedia is a tale of two sides on the Nokia Lumia 830. On the one hand, you've got got a stonking camera, we'll come on to that. You've also got some great options in terms of getting content on here. The micro SD card makes it very easy to get your videos on here. There's strong codec support, and on top of that, stick it in via micro USB connected to your computer, and it's going to be relatively simple to get your files on here too. You also have Xbox Video, and that means you can very simply buy a series. In fact, it's a little bit too easy. Just tap on that and you've spent £26.99. You can even download your series in high definition as well as standard definition too, right there. So that's the good thing. It's really, really nice to enjoy that video content on that 720p display as well. Shooting on the Nokia Lumia 830 really is helped along by a couple of things. For starters, you've got Nokia Camera, the application that's either super simple or super manual too. If we tap the button, we can take a picture like we just did, and you can see the kind of quality you can expect is very, very respectable right there. We can also jump right out of that and we can actually get a little bit more manual on it. And if we swipe out the camera, you can control things like the shutter speed, ISO, focus, and white balance too. So you can create things like light trails, you can lock focus on the closest focal range for macro, etc. There are also a few more advanced things you can do in the settings, such as adjust your lenses. Now, these engage with other applications, many provided by Nokia. You can also bracket your shots for manual HDR, and you can do a few other things. There's no automated HDR, you'll have to wait for the denim update for that. The denim update will also bring with it flash control after having taken a picture with a flash. As far as video goes, you do have some real highlights on here, and the first one has got to be that optical image stabilisation. We can zoom right in and there are no issues thrown our way as far as handshake goes. Also, you've got decent audio recording, but focus is a bit of a bummer, largely because you have no tap to focus and the focus can creep forward and back quite a lot. If we jump out of video recording, we can safely say for photos and videos it's a great performer. Unfortunately, for Nokia's smart sequence or smart camera, whatever you want to call it, it's a bit of a letdown, not because of the actual shots themselves. These take absolutely fine. You can see hold the camera nice and still, helped along by the optical image stabilization, but it's the waiting that really does kill the experience. Firstly, you'll see how long that takes to save. It's still saving. It's still saving. It's still saving, and by this point we'll have wanted to take another 2 or 3 shots. Once it finally does save, then we can open it in our gallery and we can jump into editing it as a smart sequence. And here again you've got a little bit more waiting. It isn't terrible after this point, but the mere fact you've got to wait so long taking those pictures is just a bit of a bummer. Overall though, 10 megapixel camera performs very, very well. You also have a respectable, although not brilliant flash. We naturally would have preferred Xenon, but class leading for the £300 odd asking price this thing has attached to it. Sticking with the theme of multimedia, and what's pretty magical about Nokia's Windows phones of late is the living image element applied to the gallery. If we're to take a look at a photo that we've taken, you can see it's a pretty traditional photo at the end, but it does record a little bit of footage surrounding that photo just to illustrate what was going on. And you can see, especially if you've got kids, if you've got pets, it does add a live element to the pictures taken. Moving on to gaming, and 2D games are obviously going to work very, very well. The Snapdragon 401 gig of RAM will chew through things like Flappy Birds in most emulator games like Mega Man 04. But 3D games, well, they're not going to be perfect. They're not terrible. You can definitely play 3D games pretty comfortably for now, but we haven't got a whole load of confidence that that will continue as new, cool 3D games come out for more advanced hardware, and specifically talking about that processor. What do we mean? Well, for example, Rival Knights drops too many frames. It actually does affect gameplay a little bit as well. Dungeon Hunter 4 wasn't too bad, Perfect Shift wasn't too bad, but like we said, we just don't have confidence in the gaming capabilities of the Lumia 830 at this stage. Also, when paired with the fact that imaging threw so much slowdown our way, a month into use, and well, while the user interface is going going to perform brilliantly, and most applications will too. If you're a hardcore gamer, it's definitely worth investing in either an Android device, an iOS device, or a Lumia 930. As far as benchmarking goes, in case you missed it, we actually recorded a video benchmarking the Lumia 830 against the 730, the 930, 1020, and the 1520, as well as the HTC One M8 for Windows. Despite the fact, as you can see, the user interface is super slick throughout. The actual benchmarks showcase this thing as being the weakest performer along with the 735. Reason for that? The Snapdragon 400 inside and the fact you've only got 1 GB of RAM. Is it the end of the world? Not at all. We've already covered the areas this slows down. In 3D intensive games and in photography where you have a lot of image processing taking place. What you can expect is really smooth interaction throughout the user interface for the most part, and the only real other area that it isn't as zippy as the competition really is web browsing. Definitely not a deal breaker, but not perfect either. As far as connections go, you do have LTE on here. You also got Bluetooth, NFC, wireless charging, as we said earlier, GPS and offline sat navigation again, like we mentioned earlier from Nokia. What you can also expect is that 2200 milliamp battery to last a full day. We were actually very impressed. Despite the fact that the number isn't as big as we perhaps hoped it would be, it does manage to, as long as you leave the screen off for the bulk of the day, see you through to the night with about 15–20% left, and we're talking like 10 p.m. If you are a very intensive user, a very intensive gamer, expect that time to be a little bit earlier, maybe 6–7 p.m. You can of course carry a spare battery with you. You can of course expand the 16 gig of onboard memory on here, so there are immediately those highlights out of the box. All in all, the Nokia Lumia 830 is a very good phone despite its shortcomings, and those shortcomings are undeniable. Still, you get a very premium flagship type build quality. You don't get the bulk or the price of the Nokia Lumia 930, but you get a lot of similar features such as a large 5-inch display. You also have a full Windows Phone 8.1 experience on board, and you get the perks of having a removable battery and expandable memory to complement the 16 gigabytes on board. Like we said, it will slow down when it comes to handling imagery, and that's probably the most annoying slowdown. Gaming isn't absolutely perfect either, and lastly, web browsing is slightly hindered. Multitasking though seems to be relatively snappy, and for the most part you should be well catered for with this. Hopefully you've enjoyed our review. If you have, make sure you click that like button, and if you like BTech in general, subscribe. That's how you're going to stay on top of all the latest from BTech. Thanks for watching.